Hello everybody, hope you're having a great week. I'm here for my week 7 update. I've not made any major revisions to my elevator pitch, but I do got a marketing slant on it that I want to run by the class. Dragon Wagon hauls 300 pounds of your gear, whether you're going from your Dodge to your Lodge, your Ford to the field, or your Smart to the sand. So what I'm trying to do is drill the idea down that I'm presenting in the elevator pitch to more of a marketing message. Appreciate any feedback you have on that, and then we'll test it out in the world as well. So I had a pretty interesting week this week. I got a prototype semi-working. You can see it here cruising down the beach. And once I got it that far and let it do its thing, I took this same video and posted it on Facebook. So I'll let the video conclude, and then we'll talk about where that went in just a minute. So we spent plenty of time sharing interview guides last week in week 6, so I won't go into the details of that. However, looking forward, I'm going to focus on finding my early evangelists, the people that would be most interested in this idea. I've got some things in the business model canvas I need to explore a little bit more, which would be the customer relationships and the revenue structure. And then I'm going to continue the outreach I've been making to some potential distributors, specifically in the hotel and hospitality section. So I've been able to maintain some good momentum on the customer interviews, and I want to focus on one that happened there in week 5 that I mentioned in my last update, which was Mike Murray with Ace Hardware. So for the benefit of the class, I'll just share some of the highlights of the conversation. Mike had said that, hey, he gets calls with people with great ideas multiple times a day. So he's used to filtering this sort of stuff out, and definitely came across as an expert at doing so. So he was looking for how would my idea or any idea solve a new problem that he hasn't already solved with something in his assortment in the stores. He went on to say that Yeti, the cooler company that kicked off a part of this concept, was demonstrably different and better, and that's why it made so much to carry it. He started kind of, when we talked about the item, thinking that's really expensive. He couldn't commit to it. By the end of the call, he said, well, it might make sense in the $300 to $500 range. Wanted to know if the stores could move volume. There's no reason to put it in his stores if it's not able to sell at volume. Interestingly enough, he talked about the brands that I was making some comparisons to as lifestyle brands. He's saying, that's the lifestyle, cooking out, grilling, picnicking, etc. You're just helping facilitate that, which was a new way for me to think about it, and I haven't fully thought through the implications yet, but was important. He asked me to take a look at the Ego brand of self-propelled mowers, and I did. So that's a line of products, mowers, snow blowers, weed eaters, blowers, etc., 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 that are all electric, some self-propelled. It's interesting that he brought up that brand because when I spoke to Toro in week 5, they also brought up that same brand. So clearly the group there has got something going on that people are paying attention to. I asked him finally, hey, if I were to launch this and devote some resources to building a brand, is that something you'd want exclusivity on? Assuming he'd say yes, because of the advantages that I give him. And he said, no, not really. I would look for exclusivity on great brands that people have already established. But with a new brand, I'm just looking for a partnership and how we might build that together. Customer develop report, I'll go through this quickly. Weather out here has remained stubborn, so it was a nice window that I was able to get that video shot that you saw earlier. I will say that the working prototype got a few smiles, but more strange looks, and I'll address that a little bit more in a moment. At this point, I'd say that I've got over 50 hours between that and the fully functioning, albeit miniature prototype. And when I think about even the scavenged parts that I pulled together on this thing, I'm probably up to $500, so really blown it on the original notion of 10 hours and 300. If you remember, I knew that in week 3, but I kept chasing it, and I think it was worth it, and I'll explain why. So what I thought I'd do with that video is post it on Facebook. I'm not a heavy Facebook user. I don't have that many, quote, friends, and it's not something that I have any real expertise at. So I posted the video to my groups. I posted it publicly so it could be shared, and said, hey, look what I found roaming around the beach today. So amongst that group of friends, it's generated more conversation, more views, and more sharing than anything I've ever posted. So I think it's been viewed 200 something times already, which for a normal post of mine is 4 times the average, 5 times the average. So yeah, it's getting some attention, albeit in a small circle, and I think that's kind of interesting. So the idea that building the prototype was a waste of time and a waste of money is really getting kind of balanced out by this, because it's continuing to build the longer it's been out here. So if you remember from prior weeks, I've been working with the lean canvas. I decided to go ahead and this week move over to the business model canvas, which is a little bit more robust in a few different ways. And what you see here in my color coding at this point in time is green means go, something I've got validated. Yellow means I'm still not sure yet, and red means that I'm taking it off the table. So really, what I'm going to be focusing on for the next couple weeks, or probably through the remainder of the course, is trying to resolve some of these things that are still yellow, and either say, yep, that's validated, or no, that's not validated, and I've got a problem, I've got something I need to work out yet. And as I mentioned, focusing on revenue structure and customer relationships are where I want to spend the next couple of weeks. In terms of iterate and pivot, self-propelled beats robot. That's something that started coming up in week 5 and certainly manifested itself in week 6. I did a small poll on Facebook as well, and found that people really are much more comfortable with the notion of self-propelled. So once again, didn't cost a dime, it was well worth doing. I talked a little bit about brand not being of high value. One thing that was really interesting to me is the number of people that brought up, hey, what's that robot for? It looks like it'd be great at hauling trash, which is not something that I had thought about, discussed, or described at all before. So I've got a whole new area to explore. There was some conversation about, wouldn't it just be great if that thing ran up and down the beach or around the park all day long, and people could throw their trash in it, and instead of just leaving it on the beach or in the grass, etc. So interesting idea, not even given it any thought before then. With that, though, comes some implication or implied municipal ownership, meaning that the city or the state might own these things, or perhaps a waste hauling company, but not so much a consumer. So that's a positive, in that it's a new group of potential owners to look at. It's not so positive in that the group that I was hoping for are kind of projecting it out somewhere else. The other thing I learned is if it's going to be for beach use, I'm going to need some wider wheels. Without getting too far into the technicalities of it, it drained more battery than I wanted it to over the, let's call it, 1.5 mile walk that I took it on. So I think that provides some opportunity for upgrades or options. And so if you don't need to use it at a beach, why in the world would you need beach wheels? And so that's part of some of my upcoming explorations as well. So what I learned this week, or the last couple of weeks, strange looks aren't really the best. I like smiles better. I did have a meeting with an Arduino users group, and they're really, really, really deeply into their own thing, but they can be helpful as well. So I got an opportunity to present my concept to that group, and I had a couple of people saying, hey, if you need any help, let me know, and I'll be glad to see if I can't get you over the hump, which is wonderful. Videos make convincing proof of concept. Hopefully you all had a similar reaction to it. I mentioned polls already. For me, not being a heavy social media user, really minimal reach and low response rate. Price is not so much of a thing for me. And as built, the Dragon Wagon's not fast enough to cross 6-lane street before the signal changes. So that was some massive learning on my part. So I had to cross 2 streets in which I had to pick that beast up and run with it to make sure that I didn't get run over by a Southern California driver. So thank you very much. I appreciate all the feedback you can give me, and I look forward to seeing all your presentations this week.